Welcome to this meeting of Epping Forest District Council. And if I can ask, first of all, for the webcast introduction to be read out.
Thank you, Chairman. This meeting is to be webcast. Members are reminded of the need to... the Chairman would like to remind everyone present that this meeting will be broadcast live to the internet or filmed and will be capable of repeated viewing or another use by such third parties. If you are seated in the lower public seating area, it is likely that the recording cameras will capture your image, and this will result in the possibility that your image will become part of the broadcast. This may infringe your human and data protection rights, and if you wish to avoid this, you should move to the upper public gallery. And could I also please remind members to switch off their microphone when they've finished speaking? Thank you.
Thank you. Apologies for absence.
Chairman, so far I've received apologies from councillors Vaz, Jennings, Hadley, AV, Pugsley, Owen, McCready and Heap.
Thank you. Just checking that nobody else has got any others. Thank you very much. And agenda item 3, any declarations of interest? No, none, thank you. We then come on to minutes of previous meetings, and it's to approve as a correct record the minutes of the meeting held on the... Sorry, was this to do with the declaration of interest or to do with the minutes? Can I just finish then? Yes, to approve the minutes of the 28th of February and also those of the extraordinary council meeting which was held on the 6th of March, and they are on pages 7 to 20. Councillor Kane, Helen Kane, you had a...
Yes, thank you, Chairman. It's just not to amend the minutes, but to actually explain something. So it is on page 9, last paragraph. It says that there was a procedure to get things onto the overview and scrutiny agenda by filling in a PIC form, and Councillor Heap should follow the process. I just wanted to make sure that members understand that the pink form should only be used where there is a need for task and finish panel.
Thank you. And that can be minuted in this meeting's minutes. Thank you. If we've got no other comments, can we approve those minutes, both sets? Thank you. And then move on to item 6, public questions. Sorry, I have missed out my announcements. Least important part of the meeting. The first thing you may have noticed is that you have a form on some of the desks, and my first announcement is that I am going to be doing the Harlow Thai Rotary Club's abseil off the water tower at Harlow, and I'm looking for sponsorship for my chairman's charities, the Air Ambulance, Hearts and Essex Air Ambulance and the St Clair Hospice. So if anybody feels that they would like to sponsor me for that, I would be very grateful. Thank you. And just a couple of things that I've done. Just last evening I was at Chelmsford for the declaration of the new High Sheriff, who has just taken over the role from Nick Alston, who has done it for the past year. So the new sheriff is now in place, and I am sure that we will see him out and about in the county and probably the district as well. So that was one announcement. And I've also been at various other events over the last weeks. One particular was a Keep Safe and Well event run by our own officers, community wellbeing officers at Limes Farm. Something which I'd been to previously for a winter slant on it at Waltham Abbey. This was more the sort of spring side of things and going into summer. And the one thing that I learnt and have taken note of is the fact that fire alarms should be changed more regularly than my own one. When they told us the number of years that you should keep one for, and our one is at least 25 years old, I think, and others there, at this particular event were likewise taking it up. And we have had our phone call from the fire brigade to arrange our free check and installation of new ones. So if anybody else is feeling the same way, that their fire alarms are looking a bit ancient, you've got that opportunity. So I think that was all I would say on what I've been up to, but I have been out and about and meeting people within the district and outside the district as well. So now we move on to item 6, the public questions, and we do have 2 public questions. The first one is from Mr. John Nutton, and you have that question on your papers this evening even. It starts at the bottom of page 2, but the question itself is on page 3. Unfortunately, Mr. Nutton isn't able to be present this evening, so I could just ask, are members happy to take the question as read? You have got it all on your papers. Thank you. And I believe that Councillor Williamson is going to give a response, so if I can ask for the response.
There we go. Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Mr. Nutton, for your question. In the absence of Councillor Avey, I have the response. I can confirm that the location of the litter is not on the pathway. The pathway is kept clear and clean. The location of the litter is between fences on private land. Therefore, it is the landowner's responsibility to remove this litter. Most of the litter is inaccessible due to fences that the private landowner has put up. EFDC's Environmental Protection Team and Waste Management Team are working on a joint project to resolve the litter and graffiti issue and improve the area. As this is not public land, we require the cooperation of the private landowner to proceed and remove the rubbish and graffiti, which can take a considerable amount of time. The rubbish cannot be accessed as the fence is trapping the litter and will need to be removed to access. Please rest assured that we are working to improve the situation and remove both the litter and graffiti as soon as possible. In terms of litter strategy, EFDC continues to support national campaigns, and we're doing a lot of work across the district, especially, as we'll probably come on later, reducing environmental crimes such as littering and fly tipping. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And I'm assuming that Mr. Nutton will receive a written copy of that response. Thank you. And we do have a second public question this evening, which was received in the time as set out in the Constitution. Mr. David Saunders has got a question which he will put to the meeting this evening. So if you could just turn your microphone off. Oh, sorry, on.
Great, thank you very much.
If I could ask you to stand up, it is on the procedure within the chamber.
Thank you very much, Chairman, and thank you very much, members, for allowing me to come here and ask my question today. So my question in particular is to the Cabinet Member for Housing and Community, and I would ask if you could tell me, please, about the £5 million regeneration works for the Limes Farm estate, and in particular, provide an update on the progress made to date, and also what is due to happen next, please. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Councillor Holly Whitbread.
Thank you, Chairman, and thank you to Mr. Saunders for that question. And I know he's taken a particular interest in the Limes Farm works. And actually what we've got going on at Limes Farm is a really positive piece of work. So it's a year-long project which actually started on the 30th of January. And I know Councillor Lyon has been visiting and seeing the scaffolding going up and the work beginning. So the work is looking at really essential work such as roof repairs, stopping rainwater running onto properties, looking at bricks and cladding, overcoating, also looking at some more exciting things such as pocket parks, which will be wonderful for the community, as well as an outdoor gym. In a couple of months' time, or actually a week's time, we're due to start engagement with the residents and the Residents Association in particular discussing these works, and they will be completed by January next year. So as I say, a year-long project, which is really exciting, part of the regeneration works we're doing across the district, also in Shelley, which is a wider project with some building of new council homes as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Saunders, if you have a supplementary question you wish to ask without bringing any new material in.
Thank you very much, Chairman. I did, but Councillor Whitbread's answered them, so thank you anyway.
Thank you very much. Councillor Lyon, it's not normal, but yes, if you want to add something.
I would
brief.
appreciate it, Chairman, if I could just add to that, because I spend quite a lot of time at Lions Farm, and it's in my ward. So, you know, I do feel quite passionate about the support that we give to Lions Farm. And as Councillor Whitbread said, it's a wonderful project. I was there probably a week ago with officers looking round to see exactly what was going on. And one building is actually being redeveloped, so new windows have gone in. And this has been done totally in conjunction with residents. They were invited along to the developers to actually see various colour shades that were going to be used, and also to test some of the facilities that were going to go in there. So as Councillor Whitbread said, it is a great project. There's a lot of money being spent, and it will positively enhance Grange Hill and certainly the reputation of Epping Forest. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. We move. Sorry, you're very welcome to stay for the rest of the meeting, Mr. Saunders. But if you wish to leave, you're equally feel free to. If we move on to item 8. Sorry, no, I'm really jumping around this agenda this evening. Item 7, questions by members under notice.
We have none tonight, Chairman.
Thank you. And then on to item 8, the reports from leaders and members of the Cabinet. If I can go to the leader first for his verbal report.
Thank you, Chairman. It doesn't feel like that long ago since we last met and gave reports to the Council. My reports generally are, other than what I've been doing actually here in meetings and such, is a number of outside meetings that I attend, including with the Essex leaders and chief executives, where, as you know, the ongoing discussions around the County Council and the Unitary's bid for a devolution package for Greater Essex, which is moving forward. Slowly, but moving forward. And then, of course, meetings with various other leaders, including recently the leader of Broxbourne on some issues around Dobbs Weir. In addition to further conversations, I ended up in the City Hall for a meeting around the London Plan and planning issues that are about the whole of the South East, which was really interesting. And, of course, there was DLUC officials there as well. So it's very good that Epping Forest now has its voice in the wider piece as well. In the month ahead, we've got meetings with other leaders and chief executives in the North Essex councils. So there's an awful lot going on at the moment, but it tends to be meetings outside of this area here. Of course, on a monthly basis, I meet with both the Harlow Garden Town Board, and I also meet with our own Qualis team as well to see how things are progressing there. So again, a series of regular meetings, and most importantly, it makes sure that Epping Forest is seen on the wider stage. Thank you.
Thank you. And you've got the reports from the other portfolio holders on pages 25 to 58 of the agenda. Has anyone got anything to add to their written reports? Councillor Holly Whitbread.
Thank you, Chairman. And just a good news story to add to my report. We had confirmation from, I'm going to call it the business department because I can't quite remember its new name, but that we will be receiving 1.65 million of funding for decarbonisation of our council properties, which we will be match funding. Obviously, this meets our wider term aspirations around becoming a net zero council, which is something we're really passionate about. And this actually means we can drive the net zero agenda forward in our council homes. And this is looking at 130 properties, particularly in the rural areas, actually, where there are real issues around insulation and keeping properties warm. So we're looking at air source heat pumps, further insulation, and I think this is a really good piece of news, and it follows up on a cabinet report I gave just last month. And just following on from your report, Chairman, about Nick Alston, I just want to put on record our thanks to Nick, who has actually really engaged in the community safety agenda. Obviously wants a former police and crime commissioner with a lot of passion in this area and knowledge, and he has attended the Community Safety Partnership on a number of occasions. So I would like to thank him for that. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. And Councillor Phillip.
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, I'd just like to bring to the notice of the Council that we've been working on an extension to the market at North Weald Airfield. We've agreed an extension to the end of 2024, and that comes to secure the market on the airfield. It also comes off with a significant increase in the rent that they're paying, which makes me very happy as the finance portfolio holder, but it also means it's really good for North Weald and for the airfield that that is continuing.
Thank you. Councillor Sam Kane.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. Just a very brief amendment to my report at the bottom of page 52, where we talk about the local land charges and the Her Majesty's Land Registry system going live on the 26th. It's actually the 25th of April it will be going live.
Thank you for that. Councillor Lyon.
Thank you, Chairman. In my report, I referred to website improvements, and I would ask all members to monitor the website, and if they are experiencing any issues, to make sure that they're flagged back to customer service, because this is an opportunity to get things much simpler and to make the website work. So if anybody's picking up issues, please can we make sure that they're reported. Thank you.
Thank you. No other Cabinet members wish to add anything? In that case, if we can move on to item 9 on the agenda, which is questions by members without notice. Councillor Janet Whitehouse.
Thank you, Chairman. I actually have 2 questions. Shall I just ask one to start off with?
Yes, and then we'll see how time is going.
Okay. So my question is to the portfolio holder for technical services, Councillor Williamson. On page 49 of the agenda, there's reference to a government consultation on increasing planning fees. And one of the fees which is being considered for increase is doubling the fees for retrospective applications. Members on Plans East feel very strongly about retrospective applications. So my question is somebody responding to this consultation so they can put our views forward? And you know, there are other quite technical things here which also need a response, or do we respond as individuals?
Thank you. Councillor Williamson.
Thank you for the question. Yes, there will be consultation and we will be going back. On the retrospective applications, it's not quite as straightforward as one may think. We all know how we feel about some of these, but we didn't want to have the situation where it was a penalty and the application wasn't being brought forward properly. So there is a consultation going on and we will be replying to all of that. But I understand exactly where you're coming from, because I think most of us feel pretty much the same as that. Thank you.
Thank you. And if I can come back to you after Councillor Whitehouse on your second question. Councillor Murray.
Thank you, Chairman. I'm in the same position as Councillor Whitehouse. I have got 2 questions, and if I can take a second one if there's time later. My first one, and I need to explain why I'm going to ask this to Leader of Council, because a few meetings ago he was very clear that he was Leader of Council and I should stick to litter picking. I've done my bit. I've stuck to litter picking. The Wombles are doing a great job in Loughton, so I've done my bit. So perhaps he could keep to his bit of being Leader of Council. On the 29th of January, I sent him a copy of a letter that was making serious allegations about the housing revenue account and Qualis repairs. I was coerced into silence at the Select Committee on the 31st of January, as I explained at the last council meeting, and I have yet to hear anything from the political leadership of this council on this serious issue. Yes, I have heard from officers, but I have not heard a single thing 2 months, 4 days since that email on a really serious issue, which I'm not going into tonight because it's not appropriate, but we are talking about a really serious issue to do with HRA finance and Qualis housing repairs. And I think if I email the Leader of Council on the, let's get the date right, on the 29th of January, it came up on the 31st of January at ONS. It's not acceptable that I have yet to hear of progress. So could I please have a verbal update on the progress of this investigation and when we are actually going to know what the situation is?
Thank you.
This is an acceptable question. I'm not giving an answer to that question. I mean, clearly there can be a response.
Yes. Councillor Whitbread, if you wish to give a response to the question.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. Obviously disappointed with Councillor Murray's comments this evening. And no, I will not be giving an update. This is something that is under investigation, something that we take very seriously. And that was dealt with at the Overview and Scrutiny Panel meeting. With regards to why I've not responded direct to Councillor Murray, there's a number of different responses that have gone forward and regular requests for updates, and that the investigation is ongoing. Of course, during the process, this came first to light. Was in the middle of doing the budget, which required a lot of finance officers' time, and I think it's inappropriate that the question is asked this evening.
Thank you. If I can move on then to Councillor Matthews.
Thank you, Chair. My question is also for the Leader of the Council. As members are aware, potholes in our roads following the harsh weather we've had during the winter is becoming a serious burden for residents, particularly in the rural areas. Could the Leader please share with us how this is going to be addressed? Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Whitbread.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman, and thank you, Councillor Matthews. Obviously, something very much on our minds at the moment is the condition of our roads. We've had a very severe winter. Ice, rain and poor weather doesn't make for a good partner with good roads, and I know that very much through the areas that I cover, both from my county division and obviously more locally here in Epping. The good news is that during the budget process at the County Council, we was able to find another 9 million that's been topped up by 5.5 million from the government as well. So we now have 14.5 million to push into potholes and pavement repairs in the months ahead. And you're starting to see now the County Council highways teams out there. Indeed, I know Councillor Bassett was most pleased when we managed to get a good stretch done in Nazing last week, emergency done overnight, and again, likewise with Tyler's roundabout as well. And I know there's other works that are being scheduled to take place in early to late April to address some of those pothole problems that we had. And you're quite right, the rural areas with water coming off the fields and everything else tend to suffer more. But I'm pleased to say we was able to find the additional funding towards potholes this year, which is really important, and the only party actually doing something about it.
Councillor Kaufman.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Actually, Councillor Matthews has pretty much asked a similar question, so it is directed to the Leader of the Council, who's given an answer. What I would ask is that your influence is much appreciated with the county cabinet member, and I think they can devote more resources, because it's not just the rural areas. And what we're having now is it's actually roads, particularly in Loughton and Thaden, are not safe for cyclists or motorcyclists. They are literally dangerous, and people are causing are having to have major repairs done, which is unacceptable. So I think it would be good if we could somehow feed back to really everyone what the process is that you have to go through. I know we have the money, which is a great step forward, but how are we going to get that money spent, and what is the programme to get the roads to an acceptable level in our district, please?
Thank you. Councillor Whitbread.
Thank you, Chairman, and thank you, Councillor Kaufman. It's always good that we can get these matters across, and actually I have a brilliant working relationship with the Cabinet Member for Highways. He sits just opposite me in the Cabinet Office at County Council, and I have to say he attends so many parish and town council meetings, answering the questions of residents and trying to address the issues that we have. This year has been an exceptional year for the pothole season. The weather has just been atrocious, and it doesn't matter whether you're in a town or a rural area, there are problems everywhere. What I can say is even today I've got another list of dates for works to be done. We've even been talking about the Abridge, of course, the Abridge Road today, which is atrocious. We've been talking about St John's Road in Epping, and together we are actually pressing to get things under control through the winter months, and actually it's really important, that working relationship that all councillors have with Councillor Scott, and of course he came here last week for local councils liaisons. Very disappointing that many parish and towns didn't attend last week, but he gave a really good presentation and addressed some of the questions that we have. So always happy to pick up with Councillor Scott, and if Councillor Kaufman, I'm sure he goes through Chris anyway, we'll always do our best to address the issues.
Thank you. Councillor Mead.
Thank you, Chair. I'm not sure who I'm addressing this to, so you might want to take your pick who wants to answer it. So I wasn't planning to ask a question tonight, but this morning I had a licensing committee and I parked in the pay and display car park. And as I went to pay for my ticket, there was a queue of around 7 people. So there was a lady who was trying to pay with her credit card and the machine wasn't working, so there was a queue forming. So it was a friendly queue. And as I chatted to a lovely gentleman, he's an Epping resident, he was very worried about the new ticket machines in the new car parks. Will they all be app-based or phone-based, and will any of them take coins, take change? So I promised that I would ask him tonight, because it's the full council tonight, and he's watching, and I don't know if you can answer this question now, but that's my question. Thank you.
Thank you. I think we have a debate going on as to who. Councillor Sam Kane.
Yes, thank you, and thank you for the question. The intention is to move away from cash machines and onto the My Permit scheme. My Permit is probably the best way of doing it through a mobile phone app. There is also phone up and use your credit card and do it that way. But the plan is to move away from cash, as it is in most places, I'm afraid.
Thank you. Councillor Heather.
Sorry, thank you, Chair. Sorry, my question is actually more of a request than a question, and it's for the Cabinet Member for Housing and Communities and moving slightly away from roads onto streets. Could you give us an update on the Safer Streets scheme as it applies to the Ninefields estate, please?
Thank you. Councillor Whitbread.
Thank you, Chairman, and thank you to Councillor Heather for that important question. And I've reported a number of times on the Safer Streets funding, which we received from government for the Ninefields estate, which we match funded. So we're looking at over £500,000 worth of investment in the estate. And we're looking at a number of different things to invest that money in. That includes street lighting, because obviously safety being a real focus. We're in conversations with county at the moment, but what we are trying to do is increase lighting on HRA-owned land and property. Also, as part of this money, we're really introducing a comprehensive CCTV network so we can capture crime. And then we're also providing things for the residents. So, for example, a new playground, which is very close to completion and due to open on the 11th of April, which is fantastic news. I went to an event the other day with Councillor Patel. It was a joint meeting of the Community Safety Partnership and the Health and Wellbeing Board in Epping Forest. And actually it showed how important these two issues were when working together. And we got a report on the work that's going on there. And it really is fantastic because whilst we're using the money to really invest in the estate and safety, we're also doing a great deal of engagement work with the residents. So, for example, we're encouraging Crime Stoppers and getting people to report crime on the estate. So a really good piece of work there. And I would thank Councillor Yerrell as well for his constant engagement and enthusiasm on this project. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Chris Pond.
Thank you. Oh, sorry.
Sorry.
Right, thank you very much, Chairman. This relates to the first paragraph of Councillor Phillips' report, which concern redundancies. If members may...
Could you just give us a page number?
Page 29.
Thank you.
Which you may remember, Madam Chairman, I alluded to at some length during the budget setting meeting, saying that it was a great pity that a number of loyal staff of EFDC were being subjected to compulsory redundancy. Thank you for the numbers which are given there. Is the portfolio holder able to say what was the total amount of monetary compensation paid to these 6 compulsory redundancies? What was the total length of service of the person so made redundant? And I know that the portfolio holder is not responsible for Qualis, but are there redundancies within Qualis as well? I feel generally that it was a great pity that economies had to be exacted on the staff. Is he able to say how many people have left with voluntary redundancy? In other words, how many departures through the front door there have been since the budget. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Phillip.
At the risk of sounding like Groundhog Day, Chairman, as I said to Councillor Pond at the last meeting, if you want detailed questions on things that are not held in the report, it's very useful to give that beforehand. Then I might be able to give him facts and figures that he's asking for. No, I cannot give him the amount of money that we've spent on redundancy. That will be included in the outturn of the various places where the redundancies take place. I can confirm that I've been talking on a regular basis to the Managing Director of Qualis around right-sizing Qualis's workforce. I'm not willing to go into, in this place, whether that will involve redundancies or not. It's not my place to, because that depends on the work between the management team in Qualis and the employees in Qualis to make sure that that actually works. But they are making sure that we actually right-size the budget within Qualis, and that may look at numbers of staff. I can confirm that the chairman of Qualis has chosen not to renew his term. That will save us money. We will be going out to look for a new chairman at a lower level of remuneration, which will save us money. This is a theme across what we're doing, and it comes out further on in the paragraph that we already know that next year's budget is likely to be fairly challenging, and we're starting to look not just at savings, but other ways that we can actually generate more revenue so that we balance that out. If Councillor Pond wants more details, I suggest that he actually approaches our Section 151 officer through email. We will get a response to him. I don't want to be publicising things in terms of financial payments to staff for redundancy in a situation like this. I don't think that's an appropriate way to treat our staff. But yes, it is a difficulty, and I know that, as we'll see elsewhere, we're looking at what we can do within the council body as well to make sure that we minimise the cost as far as we can as well. So it's not an individual area that's been targeted. And as I said at the beginning, I wanted as few compulsory redundancies as possible. Where that's not possible, we had to go with it, and that detail is contained in the report.
Thank you. So, Councillor Pond, you have the offer if you want to get in touch with the 151 officer.
Madam Chairman, I would sooner the portfolio holder issued such information as is not confidential with the bulletin.
I will leave that for discussion later, perhaps. I'm not seeing... Oh, Councillor Wixley and then Councillor Nweki. Councillor Wixley first.
Thank you, Chairman. My question is to Councillor Sam Kane, who is the portfolio holder for internal resources. Yes, I'm just looking at the report, and on page 53, Democratic and Election Services, down at the bottom of the page, there's reference to the count being held at the Marriott Delta Hotel at Waltham Abbey. I would imagine that there's a cost for hiring that facility, and I just wonder if it would have been possible to have held the count at the civic offices. I'm thinking, of course, that we held a successful civic dinner awards evening in the civic offices, and perhaps we could have held the count likewise here.
Thank you. Councillor Sam Kane.
Yes, thank you for the question, a very reasonable question. The reasoning behind going to the Marriott Delta this year is in preparation to test the waters, as it were, for next year, which is going to be a huge election as everybody's out. So we wanted to make sure that the Marriott was able to cope with the capacity needs that we're going to need next year. So it's really just sort of testing the water there, which we couldn't have done here, because obviously next year there's no way we're going to be able to do it here. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Nweki.
Thank you, Chairman. My question is to the Housing and Community Portfolio Holder, Holly. I'm happy to read and hear the projects going on in Ninefield Estate and the Sefer Street project you carried out in the area. I was out recently with one of the residents in Oakwood Hill Estate, and one thing he said to me is their estate is known as one of the most deprived areas in Loughton, and in his view, it's that way because the estate has been abandoned and there's not been any attention paid to the estate. And my question to you is, what is the plan to pay similar attention to Oakwood Estate, and when would that start? Thank you.
Councillor Holly Whitbread.
Thank you, Chairman, and thank you, Councillor Nowicki, for that question. And I know we had a good meeting a few months ago with one of your town council colleagues as well on the Oakwood Hill estate. And it's a really difficult question because obviously we have to look at our whole council stock. And the estates that I've mentioned have been identified for various reasons. So the Ninefields estate got the Safer Streets funding and was the focus there because of particular issues around crime and antisocial behaviour, and that was identified both by the police and ourselves through our community safety team. The Ninefields estate was looked at because it's many years of a lack of regeneration, I'd argue, and they're really kind of essential works that we have to do in line with the social housing regulator. But what I would say to you to provide some reassurance is we are doing a full stock review, and the important part of that piece of work is that we're going to be looking at all of our estates and working out where our priorities are. Obviously, we've got a certain budget and we have to make sure that that is invested in the correct places in the best way, but we do want to make sure that the whole district receives the attention that it deserves. And I'm happy to have further conversations with yourself and your colleagues about specific issues on the Oakwood Hill estate, because some of these smaller tweaks, that's something that we can do and support through the HRA maintenance budget. So let's have another chat, but please be assured we're not ignoring Oakwood Hill, but we have key focus areas for a reason, but we are doing a stock review to make sure that we are targeting the right places. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Risby.
Thank you, Chairman. And my question is for the Housing and Community Portfolio Holder, Councillor Holly Whitbread. And along with yourself, Chairman, and your Vice Chair and other district and parish councils in Chigwell, I was delighted to attend the launch of the Limes Farm Youth Club in Chigwell a few weeks ago. It was fantastic to see so much positivity and good work being carried out. And as somebody who has a clear passion and enthusiasm for promotion of health, inequalities and levelling up, it was very obvious to see the benefits this project was affording the local residents of Limes Farm. And whilst we hear reports of other councils closing down and withdrawing funding for initiatives such as this, I'm incredibly proud to see what this council is promoting and specifically projects of this type. So can the portfolio holder join me in welcoming this initiative and shed a bit of light on similar projects, in particular the Safe and Well project? Thank you.
Councillor Holly Whitbread.
Thank you, Chairman, and thank you, Councillor Risby, for that question, and I can certainly join you in welcoming this initiative. I think it's a really important piece of work, actually, because it's where we're working really closely with our partners to provide advice and support to people. And actually, one of the important points is that we're holding these events across the district. I know we held one in Waltham Abbey not too long ago. We're looking at holding one in Loughton and also in Epping. And I'm also quite keen to get one in the rural areas as well. So it's an activity that we're doing across the district. And actually, I'd really like to put on record and on minute my thanks to Wendy Coxbill in particular, who is the team manager in this area and has done really fantastic work. And actually her strength has been her engagement with not only key partners such as food banks, Citizens Advice, the NHS, but also the residents in the community who it's most important that we engage with. But this is a fantastic project, and whilst we do have financial challenges, we talk about it quite often in this chamber. Where we can, we're directing resource to where it's most needed. So another example of a project on Limes Farm is the football club, which the community safety team has funded, and that's working with the police to work with young people who are susceptible to antisocial behaviour and helping them out of it. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor McIver.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Many of my residents in North Weald return home after a hard day's work to the irritation and mess that antisocial behaviour brings, and hotspots such as Blenheim Square in my ward have become a major issue. Could the Community Cabinet Member please confirm that the funding for our police officers is secured, and that, of course, North Weald will get its fair share of that resource?
Thank you. Councillor Holly Whitbread.
Thank you, Chairman. I'm sure you're all getting bored of my voice, but thank you for that excellent question, Councillor MacGyver. And the good news is, which I'd like to confirm since the last full council meeting, is that it will be the full, if Councillor Murray will let me hear my own voice while I'm speaking, please, it will be the full 45...
I do apologise in that. I always follow what Councillor Whitbread says.
Thank you. And sorry, just to confirm that the full 45%, 45,000 will be allocated to the 4th police officer. Last time it was confirmed that we had the extra 30,000, but we've managed to find in-house staff savings to pay for that, which is good news, and that is a voluntary part-time position. And the role of these police officers is very important. They do excellent work around tackling antisocial behaviour. You've listed some of the key hotspots in North Weald there, which actually where I think the problem has been alleviated slightly through patrols, through mobile CCTV. So some excellent work that they've done there, as well as some bigger projects such as tackling county lines and drug gangs. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Parsons.
Thank you, Chairman. Fly tipping's a huge issue around the district. I know in my ward particularly, there's a number of repeated tip sites. Could the portfolio holder for technical services give an update on the work the council's doing to combat fly tipping in the district? Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Williamson.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Councillor Parsons. Yeah, we're all aware of the problem of fly tipping in the area, in the district, and we, as a council, have put covert cameras in. It would be remiss of me to tell you where they are, because it would rather defeat the object. But one of them was deployed at the end of January, and since that time there have been 7 fly tips that have been recorded, 9 investigations ongoing. One of them, in fact, has already gone through an investigation and a fixed penalty notice has been issued and paid. Of the other 8 investigations, 3 are having PACE interviews arranged, and the others are finding out the details of the actual vehicles, the owners of the vehicles, and PACE interviews will carry on. So this council is acting proactively on fly tipping, and especially one of the cameras is in Waltham Abbey. It's a big area. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Allgood.
Yes, thank you, Chair. My question is possibly also to housing. Debenham Cash Office was shut, I believe, last year, sometime late last year. As a result, a one-stop shop was set up in the Oakwood Hill Community Centre to run once a week on a Thursday morning. Pretty much it started off very well in December, I believe, and then into January, and since then the council are no longer attending. They've quoted for safety reasons of their officers. I don't necessarily dispute that. I would like to know if there's any provisions for a new one-stop shop, or at least something in the Loughton area.
Thank you. Councillor Holly Whitbread.
Thank you, Chairman. I think this is partly shared between Councillor Alan Lyon and myself. There was a very specific issue with safety of a staff member, which led to concerns there. And what I did ask is that they could look at possibly moving to the Oakwood Hill depot. For various reasons, that also hasn't been possible. So they are looking to see if they can identify an alternative location, but obviously what they're trying to do is support people through the all-pay cards and trying to encourage people to use that method. But obviously where that isn't possible, we want to make sure there's somewhere which is convenient. I don't know if Councillor Lyon can comment further on the details of the all-pay cards and the paying in. Thank you.
Councillor Lyon.
Thank you, Chairman, and thank you for the question. Yes, the all-pay cards have been issued to all residents that were paying by cash. And to date, we've had no issues, no complaints. The service now is much enhanced because previously, when there was a cash office, people had to come to the cash office. Now they can actually use any post office or any shop that actually avails themselves of that facility. So it's a much better service. And I'm not sure about the housing issues, but certainly from the pay issues, that is being really, really well received and will extend into the council pay machines downstairs as well.
Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. I don't see any other people, members. Well, I'm conscious of time. This is in response to this question.
Sorry, Chairman, I just went back over my files just to also confirm that you can use the post office as well. So just to put that on record, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Janet Whitehouse and Councillor Murray, you both indicated that you had a second question. We have reached our half hour. If I can ask that you both make them as brief as possible and also look to the Cabinet members to respond as briefly as possible.
Thank you, Chairman. I think my question is a Leader of Council, but it might be to one of the other portfolio holders. I was just wondering if Epping Library and the cafe are still coming to the council offices, and if not, why isn't this, and what is the space going to be used for?
Thank you. Councillor Chris Whitbread.
Thank you, Chairman. Discussions ongoing.
So on that basis, it's neither one way or the other at the moment, I take it. Did you want to add something, Councillor Phillip, or was that? No. And Councillor Murray?
Yeah, just to help the meeting, Chairman. I thought you were the Chairman, but Councillor Whitbread thought my first question was out of order. He certainly would think my second was, so I won't ask it.
Sorry, Councillor Murray, but you should have stood up at that point.
I'm not going to ask my second question, because if Councillor Whitbread, who appeared to be chairing the meeting, thought my first question was out of order, he's certainly going to think my second one is.
Right. You do have the option to submit it as a, on the basis of time that you have.
I will pursue it in other ways.
Sorry, I missed that.
I will pursue it in other ways.
Right, I was going to say that you have the option to put it in writing to the leader. Thank you. Well, sorry, I mean there wasn't a question there, so no, I think we'll leave that one at the moment. If we can move on then to item 10 on the agenda, which is motions.
None tonight, Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you. And item 11 on the agenda, which is on pages 59 to 66. This is a sort of amalgam of matters, in as much as we have a report that has come originally from the Constitution Working Group, but also linked into that is the calendar for the coming year. If I can perhaps just go to Councillor Bannott in the first instance as being chairman of the Constitution Working Group, just to say a few words around that actual meeting.
Good evening. I propose to give way to Councillor Sam Kane in a few moments. Essentially, the Constitution Working Group met last month to discuss the structure of the Overview and Scrutiny Committee. The recommendations are on page 59 of your reports pack, so I don't propose to rehearse each of them, but I think the real headline term that I'm sure will be open up for discussion this evening is for the Stronger Council Select Committee to be removed and its work absorbed by the Overview and Scrutiny Committee, and the Stronger Communities and Stronger Place Select Committees to be retained. I will defer to Councillor Sam Kane for the remainder of this recommendation.
Thank you, Councillor Bennett. Councillor Sam Kane.
Yes, thank you, Jim. Normally this time of year I'd come to you with the proposed calendar for the forthcoming year. We'd have a brief discussion about it and we'd move on. But as you can see from this, it's rather more complicated this time round. There's quite a few changes have been made. The changes have been brought upon us to a degree because of the budgetary constraints that we saw come out of this year's budget, which has meant a downsizing of the democratic services staff. So we're looking to maximise the time used, or how the time is used by democratic services personnel. So that's brought forward a discussion about the Overview and Scrutiny Committee structure, which is Councillor Bennett has just outlined, and it went to Constitution Group. We've come back with some recommendations from the Constitution Group. Other things in this paper are also for consideration. The Executive bringing back a couple of the subcommittees back into the main Cabinet, and other items in there about printed agendas again. This time it's for real. After many years, the only people who will be getting printed agendas will be the chairman of committees. It's time we bit the bullet and went digital. Those that can't will have to print out elsewhere because we won't be doing it. So the recommendations are plentiful, and the explanation is all in the paper. So if you have any questions, I'm more than happy to take them. Thank you.
Thank you. And you have got the recommendations before you, but I understand that there is an amendment being proposed to 1F. Can I just ask who is Councillor Chris Whitbread?
Thank you, Chairman. I'm happy to propose the amendment as set out, has been circulated to members previously. Do you want me to speak now or wait for it to be seconded?
If I do have a seconder first, yes, and then...
Chairman, I'm happy to second it. Would you prefer that I read the amendment so that everybody has it?
I think it might be, just in case anybody hasn't been able to pick it up on their...
email. Certainly. So it's amendment to, two amendments here. Amendment to recommendation 1.f to read that the position of the Chairman of Overview and Scrutiny Committee should be filled by a member of the second largest group on Council who is experienced in scrutiny matters, and also to amend Appendix 1 to provide for a 4-weekly cycle of meetings for Plans East and Plans South, with Plans West alternating with DDMC on a 6-weekly cycle.
Thank you.
I shall reserve my right to speak at the end.
Okay, thank you. So we've got an amendment to 1F and also an amendment with recommendation 3 on the page. Councillor Chris Whitbread, you wish to speak to the amendment first of all, and then Councillor Murray has indicated that he wishes to speak.
Thank you, Chairman, and my apologies. I thought the amendment had been properly circulated in hard copy, so my apologies. And of course, Councillor Kane would then turn around and say to me, but of course, everything has to be digital now. So I take that point. Chairman, the recommendations here are very similar to what the amendments here. Very similar to what I said at the select panel the other week when this was considered. Scrutiny is such an important function for any council, and I think we'll see more of that and hear more of that in the months and weeks and months ahead. So certainly I think this is a sensible step in that the main overview and scrutiny body should be chaired by a member of the second largest party, to give it some more authority and, of course, focus from the point of view of being chaired by the opposition. I know people don't like me to use this term, but it's the most easy term to use, the opposition group, or largest opposition group within the council. Fortunately, we don't use that too often in this council, but I think this is a good step forward. Our amendment means is a sensible amendment. I've seen this system work very well at county, where Councillor Pond and myself will often sit opposite each other as I get carefully scrutinised. I think this is fundamental that we change the way we do scrutiny in this council. I think 3 scrutiny bodies will work really, really well. I don't see it as just a saving. I see it as a way of making our scrutiny more incisive and efficient as a body. I think it will work very, very well. Then we come on to the additional amendment around planning. Plans East and South meet on a regular basis and have full agendas. Unfortunately, Plans West isn't quite so similar, so what we're recommending here, I think, actually reduces the number of meetings slightly, but means that the business transacted by East and South are kept on that regular pattern that they've been up to now. Of course, that means that Constitution will be looking again at the operation of planning over the coming year, and you would expect them to do so on a regular basis. Happy if I can come back later on at the end of the debate, Chairman, if I need to.
Thank you. And then I open to any other members. I've got Councillor Murray.
Chairman, I'm going to speak to the amendment. I'm going to speak to the amendment first. Are you dealing with the amendment first?
Yes, we are.
And then I would like to speak after the amendment's been dealt with to the substantive issue, because there are other issues I wish to explore. I'm going to support the amendment. I had real concerns, and in fact I emailed officers and got some feedback around the change in plans, and I picked that up, and though they did give me answers that kind of satisfied me, I do think this amendment is a better amendment to keep those 2 planning committees on the regular flow. I do think it's a legitimate question, and I'm not getting hot under the collar or upset about it, but I do think it's a legitimate question to ask. What has changed? The Constitution Working Group was quite happy with the idea that all three parts of scrutiny were chaired by non-majority group members. And I mean, I'm not saying it was decided on a political basis, but if it wanted to be decided on a political basis, the majority of people at the working group were from the majority group, which you would expect. And then it went to Community Select Committee, and nothing gets past Councillor Lee's Select Committee. So they know exactly what they were endorsing, and there was a majority of Conservative councillors there as well. So I think it's not unreasonable to have an explanation from the proposer and the seconder why the change. Why, you know, if the working group is saying 3 steps forward, and that was endorsed by the Community Select Committee, 3 steps forward, and now it's 1 step forward, which I welcome. I'm not being churlish about it, and I'll be supporting the amendment. But I do think that's a reasonable question to ask. You know, working group, Select Committee were quite happy with the idea of the 3 chairs, and now we're going back to the idea of just 1. What's happened in between? Thank you.
Thank you for that. I was going to, if I've got 4 other speakers to the amendment, so if I go to them first and then pick up the other points along the way at the end. Councillor Helen Kane.
Thank you, Chairman. As the current chairman of the Overview and Scrutiny, I fully support this amendment. I have always believed that Council should have a strong scrutiny. It helps us secure the efficient delivery of public services and drives improvements within the authority itself. To achieve that, I believe we have to have the right balance. And of course, my view is that the position of the chairman should be filled by a member of the second large group. The fact that experience and training on scrutiny matters are essential, of course, it is an understatement. So I would ask all the members of this council to support this amendment. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Janet Whitehouse.
Thank you, Chairman. I'm a member of the Constitution Working Group, and we had a very full discussion, the members who were there, and also quite a lot of non-members who don't usually attend. And after a lot of discussion, we came to the decision that the proposals on your council agenda were what we should put forward. And as Councillor Murray has just said, that was also discussed at communities, and they made no change. I'm pleased that the Conservative leadership appears to be agreeing that the chairman of the OSC should be a member from the opposition group. It's the practice in most other local authorities. However, the Amendment 1F refers only to the chairmanship of the Overview and Scrutiny Committee. There's no mention of the other 2 select committees, or scrutiny committees as we're going to call them, which the Constitution Working Group is saying that should be shared by opposition members, and that has disappeared from this amendment. For that reason, I won't be supporting it. The amendment also says that the chairman should come from the second largest group. I don't think it's for the Conservative group to tell us which group we should choose our chairman from. I think it should be something that the opposition groups discuss together, and I don't think that is right. I have no problem with the bit about the amendment on the planning. That makes sense, but 1F I will not be supporting. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Sam Kane.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. I too was on the working group, and we looked at that. There was a good discussion about it, and I voiced my opinion that I felt that scrutiny was a function for the non-majority party. But the important point here is the scrutiny with teeth. The scrutiny that really matters is that looks at the operation of the council and its budget and where the money gets spent, because it's residents' money. And that function is coming out of, to be redundant, Stronger Council, and going up to the parent body of ONS proper. So that's where the chairmanship needs to reside in the non-majority group. So I will be supporting the amendment at 1F, and the secondary one in the Appendix 1 makes total sense. I'm also a member of Plans West, and we do only sit down very occasionally. So that just makes total sense. It's common sense. So I support that as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Chris Pond.
Madam Chairman, this morning Councillor Whitbread and I started, or at least I started, with locking horns as Chairman of the Corporate Scrutiny Committee in Essex and as Finance Portfolio Holder in Essex. And I must say we did it fairly amicably, as we generally do, because although scrutiny should be vigorous, it should also, I think, be on as friendly a basis as it can be, a peer challenge rather than antagonism. So on the whole, I support these proposals, and as Janet Whitehouse, Councillor Whitehouse said, it is the case in most other local authorities that the second largest political group fulfills the chairmanship of Overview and Scrutiny. And that's why I'm chairman of the Scrutiny Committee, because the non-aligned group is the second largest in the County Council at the moment. So that all seems fairly accurate to me, fairly sensible. What are the proposer and seconder of the amendment's intentions relating to the chairmanship of the other scrutiny committees and the vice chairmanship of the main Overview and Scrutiny Committee? And is there a question of, with planning committees, if Plans West is to meet less, then will the remuneration of all these chairmen and the chairman of Overview and Scrutiny be reviewed by the independent remuneration panel in due course? And will the proposer be making proposals in that regard? And I would point out that the table which follows this item on Appendix 1 gives rise to the old idea, which I had not quite noticed had been dispensed with, but it seemed a bit ambiguous from what the leader said, which is that East and South planning subcommittees should meet reasonably frequently, but the grid does give several blanks. And is it the intention of the administration to put forward a revised appendix? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Quite a lot of questions raised within all of that and from previous speakers as well. So, Councillor Phillip, if I come to you as the seconder of the amendment.
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, and I will try and answer all of those. I may actually work almost in reverse order if Councillor Murray is happy about that. Remuneration is, as Councillor Pond says, done by the independent group. We just received one of those very recently, which means the next one's not due for a year or so. Now, as will not escape any members in the chamber, we have all-out elections in May 2024. I fully expect Constitution Committee to be looking through this coming year at what the right structure for planning is after that change in the composition. I personally, and cards on the table here, I don't see it remaining as plans east, south and west going forward. I don't think that's the most efficient way of us doing it. And at that point, given once we know what we're doing with that, that will feed it into the independent remuneration panel to look at it. And I think that's the right way to deal with that. We have agreed what the remuneration scheme should be for this year. I suppose that gives Plans West Chairman a little bit of a light run this year in terms of the remuneration, but that's one of the things I think we can't avoid. I would echo with Councillor Pond around it being normal practice to the second largest group chairing the scrutiny panel. I think that's a good piece, not least because it actually gives the weight of representation behind the chair of scrutiny, we have the chair, that we have the leader of council as the largest group, it makes sense for the representation on the scrutiny board, which is challenging the cabinet, to be the one that's got the equivalent amount of support in the chamber. So that's why we went for the second largest group. Why change? Councillor Murray, as people would know, I normally sit on the Constitution Committee. I would have been at the Constitution Committee for this particular meeting if it wasn't arranged at the last minute and I had an unavoidable appointment elsewhere. As Councillor McIver knows, I was actually at the ABBA Voyage concert, which I had tickets bought for me by my daughters for my Christmas present, so I wasn't going to miss that for Constitution, much as I love Constitution Committee. And actually, when it came to the scrutiny panel, I wasn't even in the country, so I couldn't attend that one. Why have we've changed? Because I went back and looked at the pro rata arrangements for chairs and vice chairs for the council. If we did this for 3 chairs of the committees, it would reduce only, I think, to about 3 other chairmen, which would be the 3 chairmen of the licensing subcommittees. That would give no other representation in chairman for people outside the main group. I think it's a better way that we actually have it as the chair of the overview and scrutiny being the second largest group, and we work through, in the way that we usually do, all the other chairs, so we get a proper pro rata, and we don't eliminate other parties from the other chairmen. That's what drove it there. And if I had been at Constitution, I might have even noticed at that point, but I hadn't. That's why we changed it. Hopefully that's a good explanation. Chairman, I think in general people are in favour of this amendment. I won't speak any further on it. I think I've answered all the pertinent questions. I would just urge members to support this.
Thank you very much.
Sorry, Chairman, one thing that Councillor Pond raised that I didn't answer. The gaps in Appendix 1 are due to it being on the 6-week cycle. The amendment calls for that to be reissued with the changes to the planning committees on it.
Thank you. So, that answer, sorry.
Chairman, if you allow me, if that is the case, and personally I don't think it's entirely necessary, but it is the case, then could the officers issue the revised schedule as soon as possible, because many town and parish councils depend on that being available as soon as possible.
Thank you, and I'm sure Mr Woodhall will have taken note of that. So I think we're now at the point where if we can go to the vote on the amendments, if we can look at recommendation 1F first, I think if we take the 2 amendments separately. So can I ask those in favour of the amendment for 1F to show their
(41), Chairman.
Thank you. And those against?
3, Chairman.
And do we have any abstentions?
Oh, sorry, no, sorry.
No.
I didn't count you, Chairman. I thought you was abstaining.
Sorry? Oh, yes. I'm abstaining.
Right, okay.
Yes, on
1
the
then, Chairman. Thank you.
Yeah. And then if we move on to the recommendation 3, which refers to the calendar of meetings, and we've already heard that a new calendar would have to be produced as soon as possible. Councillor Murray, you wish to make a comment on that one?
Earlier, I want to speak on the substantive issues now. Not for long, but I think it. Oh, right, sorry, we've got the second amendment. I do have a question then on the calendar that might be relevant. Right, okay. Can I have my normal assurance, because I don't think we've had an opportunity to ask this anywhere else. Have we done our best to miss the main faith days of the main 3 faiths?
Sorry, Councillor King.
I'm assured by officers we've done our utmost to avoid all the main ones, yes.
Yeah. So on the amendment for... Sorry, Councillor Pond.
Be in order, Madam Chairman, for me to comment on item 3 in the report. That is the amendment of the schedule of meetings.
So I thought, yeah, I thought we had included that in the original one,
No,
but have you got a separate point you wish to make?
Well, I think you said, Madam Chairman, and I might be wrong, that we were voting on main recommendations numbered within 1, but I may have misheard.
We were voting on the amendment F in 1, and we will now go to
Okay, okay.
Amendment 3. So you're happy that we go to vote on the amendment for item 3, the third recommendation on the report. Those in favour of... Sorry.
Can I just clarify for help? My amendment, my amendment, members, is to move to a 4-weekly cycle for plans east and south and plans west DDMC alternating. I believe that's what you're going to vote on, Chairman.
Right. And you wish to make a comment on that, Councillor Pond?
Yes, Chairman. I think we added into the schedule which is before us a rather larger number than usual meetings of the District Development Committee. And I'm wondering whether, when the rescheduling is to be done to go to a 4-weekly cycle for East and South, that the number of district development meetings could be normalised, put back to what it was before.
Thank you,
Chairman, if I can respond to that. What I've said is to move the Development Management Committee to a 6-week cycle on the basis that we now have an adopted local plan. We expect more large applications to come forward. Those will go to DDMC. So the idea is to schedule it every 6 weeks. If we don't need them, we will not run them. So I think it makes sense to have them at that 6-week cycle, alternating with Plans West. Otherwise, we get in a bit of a difficulty.
So,
Chairman, I think that it would need to be predicated on the other committees, the South and East, meeting also on a 6-weekly basis.
I think we're probably getting into the intricacies of the calendar, which perhaps we're accepting the principle that we need more, or like to need more DDMC meetings, and we could find that we are cancelling other area plans meetings, but that extra meetings can always be put in to deal with any applications that come forward and need to be dealt with in a time scale. I think that's right.
Yeah, Chairman, if I can just clarify, the recommendations in the report are for all planning committees to be 6 weeks. What we said here is Plans South and Plans East to meet in a 4-weekly, but to keep the others as the same because of the fact that the local plan has been changed, has been approved, and therefore that makes sense to provide. I know from my planning colleagues that there are at least 4 significant applications for DDMC coming forward anyway. I think this makes sense in terms of making sure that we've got a good number of DDMC meetings going forward, and as I say, if they're not needed, because, and I hope from a finance point of view they are needed, because that means the application will be coming forward and I'll get the fees, but I think it makes sense to plan in that way.
Thank you. I think it will be clearer to everybody once the new calendar has been issued, which is obviously going to have to be done in, regarding this amendment. So are members happy to agree the to vote on the amendment? Those in favour of the amendment to amend Appendix 1?
I think that's carried, Chairman. It's all bar 2 or 3 members, I think.
Thank you. Well, can we just have a show of hands for those against the amendment and abstentions?
One abstention, Chairman.
Yeah. Okay. So that the amendment has been agreed. So are members now happy to approve the recommendations 1, 2 and 3 as set out on page 59 with the amendments? Councillor Murray?
Yes, thank you, Chairman. I do want to just say a couple of things, and then I think there's an important question that I want to ask the leadership of the council that arises from this, that I think will be of benefit to all members. I attended, it was a Zoom meeting, I'm not a member of the Constitution Working Group, but I attended the meeting because of this item. And it became apparent in the discussion, and I'm not against the proposal, I'll be voting for these, that the loss of one select committee was a given because of budgetary considerations. And then when we looked at this and other items at the community select committee, it became further in other ways, which I won't go into tonight because it's not on this particular report, that changes and cutbacks, well, it's webcasting and agenda items, agendas not being printed were implicit in the budget. So I think it's very reasonable for me to ask on behalf of other members, could we now please have a list from portfolio holders via the bulletin about other things that they are now aware of, they were aware of during the budget time that we perhaps should have asked questions about, but we didn't, that they now know were implicit within the budget that will be coming down the line. I think that will help members. I don't think it's really good that we might be going to other meetings during the next calendar 6 months and hearing of other things that portfolio holders agreed as part of their budget settlement. So I'm asking, are there other things coming down the line? Because it's clearly things here have. And could we have a list of those things? Because I think it will help members. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Murray. I'm looking at Councillor Chris Whitbread, if you're going to respond.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. I did actually respond partially to this at the select panel meeting. Obviously, this year's budget, as we all know, and Councillor Phillip has reminded us very many times, was probably one of the toughest budgets we've ever gone through. I don't think these changes are necessarily driven by just budget. They're driven by a need to do things differently and to make scrutiny or give scrutiny some additional teeth in the role that it plays. In fact, the budget came to select panels and scrutiny and probably wasn't well enough attended. And therefore, I think that shows why these changes are recommended this evening, because we need a scrutiny that does scrutiny. I think that's fundamental to having good finances as a council. So this isn't just driven by budget savings. And when it comes to the budget, numerous papers were given to Cabinet, to select panels, to scrutiny, and it's all about the questions that are asked in those places to make sure that members understand what's going on. And this council is probably more transparent than any other council I know. There was plenty of opportunity to ask the questions. Indeed, I know the Liberal Democrats asked a number of questions around some of what we were doing in certain areas. They were answered on the evening that the budget was discussed. Others chose not to support the budget, even though that included the important finances for our local police, our highways rangers, and of course the funding of Epping Sports Centre. So I think people did get enough chance to ask the right questions at the budget, but actually what I hope from this evening is these amendments will make scrutiny better in this council in the future.
Thank you. Councillor Pond, you indicated that you...
No, it's on this item.
Yeah, Councillor Pond.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Right, thank you. Yes, it's just there's been one or two comments about not printing agendas, and I didn't really get to that in full clarity. It should be. Which agendas is it intended not to print?
I think, as as is being indicated, as my understanding, having been on the Constitution Working Group myself, it was to remove all paper agendas to all members except those chairing each meeting. But perhaps I'll let Councillor Kane, perhaps, as the portfolio holder, say.
As stated by our good lady chairman, that is the intention.
Madam Chairman, some members have not given the derogation under the Act not to receive printed agendas.
I'm sure that going forward that will be rectified, but Councillor Sam Kane.
We will certainly have officers investigate.
Sorry.
I said we will certainly have officers investigate.
Thank you. Councillor Janet Whitehouse.
Chairman, I don't think it's reasonable for the leader to put the blame on scrutiny for not finding out about some of the cuts that are being made. When we had Communities Select Committee, there was a big cut in the budget, and we discovered that a lot of the webcasting is not going to be done in the future. That's not just budget, that is public engagement. But when I asked, and said, oh, we're doing the scrutiny tonight, where is the decision going to be made? And I assumed it was going to Cabinet, and I said, oh yes, of course, it'll go to Cabinet. Then we heard that there had been this pre-budget discussion amongst the portfolio holders where these decisions had been made, and our scrutiny was for nothing. But there are these other hidden sort of things that are coming out bit by bit. We're just asking to know, what are the cuts which we haven't heard about, we didn't know to ask the right questions? Just, tell us what they are so we know going forward, and we don't have nasty surprises like at Communities.
Thank you. I think Councillor Phillip.
Yeah, I take exception, actually. We're not talking about cuts here in general. It's all about savings. And the savings are the things that were identified in the budget. The routes to achieving those savings come forward at the appropriate time. The budget is not necessarily specifying, and this is a great example, the budget did not specify that we would go down from 4 scrutiny committees to an overview and scrutiny and 2 others. After we went through the budget, to meet the budget envelope, we looked at different ways of achieving it. That's what came forward here. That's what's here, looking to make the best approach towards scrutiny that fits in within the budget. And I think that's the way we go forward. We're looking at what can we do, and some places, as for example in terms of the staffing levels, we have to date that question in advance, and we looked at that, and that's where we ended up for. These are things that we can all do to reduce the cost to the taxpayer of what we are doing. So people who retain the ability to get paper agendas, apart from chairmen who need it to chair the meeting, they have to consider the fact that what they're doing is they're putting a bigger burden on their taxpayers by having the printed agendas. We take this very seriously. As Councillor Whitbread already said, it was the toughest budget that I've had to deal with. The toughest budget I've seen in all the time that I've been on the council. We got to a point where we did have a balanced budget. We got to a point where we had a council tax that keeps us as the lowest council tax offering in the whole of the Essex County area. We have also not cut any frontline services at all. And we've maintained our highways rangers. We've maintained our police force. We've provided in the capital budgets, which has an impact on our general fund, for not only funding the new sports centre in Epping, but also producing an approach that allows us to be much more competitive around the waste management contract, which will be coming up. We are doing an awful lot on that. So I think that answers that. The one thing I would say on the substantive is I genuinely believe that we should be removing the planning committees in May 2024. We cannot possibly have any planning committees before full council meets in 2024 because we will have no councillors and no councillors allocated to committees before that because everybody is up for election. So it's impossible to have committees at that point. And I see we have one which is Plans West before full council, one the day after and one a week after. I think sensible point at this stage would be to delete those from the calendar, wait and see where we're getting with the work through the Constitution Committee for planning going forward, and then, if necessary, bring that back before we finish this council as it stands.
Thank you. I think we've had quite a broad discussion around what is the recommendations that you've got before you this evening. So I think if I can now go to the 3 recommendations with the amendments as we have set out and discussed, those in favour of those recommendations.
believe that's unanimous, all bar one.
Thank you.
And you're the abstention.
Yes. And so those recommendations have been agreed. We move on to item 12, the licensing committee is looking at and putting forward the statement of licensing principles for the Gambling Act 2005, and we're being asked to adopt the revised statement. Councillor Morgan, would you like to present this?
Thank you, Chairman. As you see from the report, the Gambling Act 2005 has to be reviewed every 3 years. The Licensing Committee, this has been done by this authority. It has been published and consulted with the members of the public and the licensing applicants. You see that from the report there are only minor amendments to this. The committee actually considered it a full report in March at their meeting, and therefore I ask the full council to adopt the revised statement of licensing principles. Thank you.
Thank you. Members happy to adopt this revised statement of licensing principles? Thank you very much. And moving on to item 13 on page 95, we have the Audit and Governance Committee annual report for 21-22, and this is a report for noting, but if I can ask Councillor Bolton just to present this report. Oh, Councillor Morgan.
My part. Thank you. I hope it is mainly for noting. The report is there. I would add one or two things to point out. We have a very excellent co-opted vice chairman in Tony Jarvis, who, because of his profession as an auditor, asks very searching questions and keeps us on our toes. We also recently had a training session in which we looked into how well we're doing it, and one thing we decided was we would like to initiate a meeting with the external auditors to see if there are any things that need flagging up before they plummet. Our reports go to Cabinet before then, if necessary, coming to this council. I welcome any questions on this part of the agenda.
Thank you very much. Councillor John Whitehouse.
Oh, thanks for the invitation.
Oh, sorry.
Thanks for the invitation. I was just going to ask two things, if I may. First of all, you mentioned the external auditors and the explanations you've received about the delays in your report. And I just wondered what the response or what view the audit committee had formed on those explanations. And the second thing is, you don't specifically mention whistleblowing in the report, although it does come up in the anti-fraud strategy next. And again, I wondered what consideration you'd given to whistleblowing in the council.
Thank you. Councillor Bolton.
Perhaps we could cover the second part in the next part of the agenda. Thank you, sorry. As you will know, there has been problems with the external auditor, and the decision has been made to change external auditor, and perhaps I could invite Councillor Phillip to talk to that. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Phillip.
Thank you, Chairman. Before I do come to that answer, I just wanted to, on behalf of the Finance and Audit team, thank the Audit and Governance Committee for their diligence in doing the work. They meet on a regular basis, and I know that I will always get searching questions from the Audit Committee that need to be looked at in real detail. So thank you very much to the Audit and Governance Committee, particularly with the independent members, Councillor Bolton said. In terms of the external auditor, it will be no secret to say that Mr. Small and I talk about the external auditor and their lack of progress on a regular basis. In fact, I can say it's actually less than a week since we last talked about it. It's not an acceptable position. However, we are far from alone in this. The existing audit contracts are, how shall I put it, failing miserably. The other part is, as Councillor Bolton has said, the procurement exercise run nationally to get new auditors did not select our current auditors for any of the options. It therefore makes it very much harder for us to have any leverage at all on our existing auditors to try and persuade them to do their work in a timely manner. I talked to colleagues elsewhere in Essex. They're in the same situation. They've still got 2 years of audit reports outstanding. I know Mr. Small was at a conference with some representatives from the civil service, and he asked them very clearly if they could help put pressure on our auditors to actually do what we're paying them to do. I've also been very clear with Mr. Small that my opening gambit is all the extra work that they think that they're doing because they didn't do their job properly in the first place. I do not want to see a raise in fees from them because they couldn't do what they were supposed to do. I do hope that very soon we will be able to bring forward the audit report for 2 years ago, and then they can move on rapidly to the one that's just a bit out of date. Realistically, though, we won't get that before we're into the next financial year, and we're possibly starting the budget, and it does make it very difficult to come forward with a good budget process if we don't know that we've had the account signed off for last year and for the year before, and then it could be the year before that if they don't get their finger out. So, Councillor Whitehouse, rest assured we are doing everything we can to put pressure on the auditors to do the job that they're supposed to do. The good news is that all the indications are there's no issues, as I said in my council report, there's no issues with that audit. We just need them to do what they're supposed to do.
Thank you. Was there another question that Councillor Bolton was going to respond to? No?
It's the next.
Right. Okay. In that case, we've got no other questions. Are members happy to note this report? Noted. And then we move on to, again, Councillor Bolton, item 14, anti-fraud and corruption strategy. And again, the recommendation is that this strategy, which appears on pages 105 to 119, be approved. Councillor Bolton.
I'd ask you to notice this and to speak to Councillor, Whitehouse's question. We haven't as yet had to discuss any issues with whistleblowing. There is a process, I'm sure, which can be followed if necessary, but we haven't. This has not raised its head in this committee, but we will be more than happy to address the issue as necessary. Yeah. I'd also like to point out that we do assess risk on a regular basis. We get presented with risks, some of which are imaginary and some of which are real. And we have a chart where the risk is identified as a potential risk, then a perceived risk to the council, and then the action that will be taken to lower that. And I'm glad to say the trends of all these risks is downwards, but we will analyse this very regularly and obviously report if the risk goes up. You can't remove risk. There's a risk crossing the road. Those sort of risks are identified in our committee. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes.
Councillor John Whitehouse.
So thanks for your early answer. Sorry, I'm just intrigued by what you just said. Which imaginary risks are we taking account of or preparing for?
Such as financial, the economy going downhill. I can look at them all. Increasing demand for, sorry?
Sorry, I mean, hopefully that won't come to pass, but I'm not convinced it's imaginary. I think that is something that we should take seriously.
I think Councillor Philip will
I think Councillor Bolton was trying to give some view on the risks which are relatively unlikely to happen. As people who attend audit and governance will know, I frequently have a discussion in audit and governance on the risk register with Councillor Heaper and the prioritisation of climate change and how much we as an individual council can actually do to affect climate change. That's not to underestimate its importance at all, but to recognise that we are simply a district council whose levers to affect global climate change are not huge, and therefore to prioritise that over things that we can change is not a good use of our resources. The Audit and Governance Committee does look at the risk register. I think it's every single meeting that they go to, or more or less that, because it comes up and it's so important for us to look at. They do take significant views about the various prioritisations, and some of them are, while still have a significant potential impact on the council, are very unlikely to happen. And then there's other ones that are fairly likely to happen, but the impact that they will have on the council is very small. And those are the ones that I think Councillor Bolton was putting towards the imaginary area, because the chances of it all happening is very unlikely. So that's I think that's, Councillor Bolton, I think that's what you were effectively saying. And but I can assure Councillor Whitehouse that the risk register does get more airtime perhaps than people would realise.
Thank you. So,
I would like
sorry, Councillor Bolton.
Point out one or two of the things, for instance, that are relevant to now. The risk of cyber security incidents. It exists. It has been relevant recently to this council. That's one of the type of risks that we look at. Lack of housing, that's a risk. And what the council then does about it, I could read them all out, but there are quite a few risks that we assess and monitor.
Can I just clarify that we are talking about the anti-fraud and corruption strategy here? Yes? Thank you. So if we haven't got any more questions or comments, the strategy is, as I say, set out from page 105 onwards, and we are being asked to approve this strategy going forward. So are members happy to approve this? Approved. Thank you. And then we come on to the joint arrangements and external organisations, and you did receive through emails links to the 3 reports that you've got before you this evening, one from the Grange Farm Centre Trust, one from the Lee Valley Regional Park Authority, and one Loughton Broadway Town Centre Partnership. If I can perhaps just take them in turn, if there's any questions on the Grange Farm Centre Trust. On the trust, Councillor Murray? No.
Mine's going to be a general comment on all 3, Chairman.
Right. Shall I wait until we've had for each one and then come to a general? Any on the Grange Farm Trust? Any specifically to the Lee Valley Regional Park Authority? And any specifically to Loughton Broadway Town Centre Partnership, which the report has come from Councillor Rose Brooks? No, in that case, Councillor Murray.
Yeah, I just wanted to thank the 3 members for the reports. I thoroughly enjoyed reading them, and I thought it reminded me of something really important. Not only are we lucky to have Epping Forest in this area. We are extraordinarily lucky to have those three organisations. The Grains Farm Trust do an absolutely wonderful job in the centre that they run, and the meadows and the charities that they support. The Lee Valley Park, though I don't use it as much as I should because it's kind of on the other side of the district, is just a tremendous asset, and I know the people from Waltham Abbey and people from other parts of the district really enjoy it. And what can I say about the Town Centre Partnership? And it is a privilege, and I really mean this, members, it's a real privilege to share a ward with Councillor Rose Brooks. I can't think of a better councillor to share the ward with, and she chairs the Broadway Town Centre Partnership. And though I don't want to upset other Town Centre Partnerships, I think you will find it difficult to think of another Town Centre Partnership that is as active as the Broadway Town Centre Partnership. And in reality, there is some support from EFDC, but the hard work really does come from a few traders, because they are busy running businesses, and I fully understand that, so it's not a criticism. It comes from a few traders, it comes from a considerable number of local residents that are prepared to come on board, and I hope Rose doesn't mind me saying this, other town councillors from Loughton are very supportive of the community events that are run, and I just have to say the inspirational leadership that Rose gives. So thank you for the report.
Thank you. Councillor Janet Whitehouse, you wanted to...
Thank you, Chairman. At the last council meeting, I asked if members would put in reports if they hadn't done so, and I want to thank the members who have. I learnt a lot about those three organisations, and I hope the members who are going to be appointed next year, if the outside bodies really will give regular reports. I think it's so important we know what these bodies are doing. Thank you.
Thank you for those comments. Councillor Helen Kane, you wish to...
Thank you, Chairman. Unfortunately, we had our last meeting with the Royal Gunpowder Mills was actually only a few days ago, so it actually missed completely the deadline. But I've got some good news. Please make a notice that the Royal Gunpowder Mills are open on Saturday, the 15th of April. Please book your tickets. There is for the experience the Royal Gunpowder Mills Day. There will be so much to do. It is from refreshments, tractor riding, railway riding tour, walks, and historian tours, amongst others. So please keep that on your calendar. And if I may, Chairman, I have to say that the Waltham Abbey Town Partnership is one of the best organised and the best active partnerships in this district. And if you would like me, I could actually give you reports every time we meet. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Kane. I don't see any other indications of wishing to add anything. So I think we have no other business, no business to close the meeting for, to close the meeting to the public. So I close this meeting at, oh dear, 14 minutes to 9. Thank you all very much.
Good. Well done, Chairman. Very good.